Thank you for your response. The next question will be first directed to Mr. Bottos. Over the last 2 years, the Texas Department of Transportation has been largely criticized for numerous things, among them a $1 billion accounting error, use of taxpayer funds for lobbying efforts and PR campaigns promoting the Trans-Texas Corridor, and a general lack of accountability to the citizens of Texas. If elected, what changes will your wife work for in regards to TxDOT?
Basically, some of the work that Glenn Hager is involved with is some of the Sunset Commission. TxDOT is having a free rein to do too many things, basically the ideas that you mentioned. They have no control. Legislation to be put in place to either dissolve it or come up with a workable solution where they are held accountable. That could also mean elected officials rather than appointed by the governor. So there are some citizens' feedback on this information. It's almost a little debacle will run amok. Basically, they're allowed to sit there, go in, take land, set up legislation which was actually passed through the House 6 or 8 years ago. Nobody bothered reading the legislation, and that's another issue. How can you read 6,000 pieces of legislation? It's a difficult task. Obviously, she will have to meet that challenge, as John has done over the past year.
Thank you. Representative Zerwas, same question.
Thank you, and it certainly is an issue that is front and center for the citizens of House District 28, but certainly across the entire state of Texas. I think first and foremost that we have to understand that there needs to be a great deal of transparency in this process. TxDOT has lost any sense of trust among the citizens of the state. What at one time might have been really one of the better agencies that we had. We were very proud of our roads and the things that we did has really become immersed in a bunch of controversy and so forth. And I think a lot of that has to do with a lack of transparency and a lack of trust. And so I think one of the first things we need to do is to open the checkbook of TxDOT, in fact, a whole number of other agencies out there, so that they can be held accountable to the citizens and we understand where the monies are being spent. $1 billion is a whole lot of money. And you lose $1 billion, just as you said, Trey, and you need to ask yourself, as Glenn Hager asked himself, who is responsible for that, and do they still have a job at TxDOT? And the response that Glenn got from the person that he asked that question, well, nobody. And he said, what do you mean, nobody? And they said, well, we just think that it was some miscommunication, oversight, and this and that maybe we'll watch and make sure it doesn't happen the next time. Well, you and I know what would be the consequences of what would be an equivalent of $1 billion in any kind of business that we were involved in. Somebody would lose their job over that. And that is, I think, something that has to develop within the culture of TxDOT, is that sense of responsibility about who they are, what they're doing, and that they're dealing with a great deal of the taxpayers' money. So creating that culture of accountability, creating transparency as a result of this whole sunset issue, I believe is absolutely critical for us to have some better trust in TxDOT.
Thank you. Next question will be directed to Representative Zerwas. Representative Zerwas, what are the major differences between yourself and your opponent, and why are you a better choice for state representative? And we would love specifics.
Thank you, Greg. Well, I think first, clearly, our system of electing individuals for public office, and they will typically run on different platforms. They're markedly different platforms between myself as a Republican and that of Ms. Bottos as a Democrat. They vary from social issues to perhaps some of the more fiscal issues and just focus on government in general. One of the things, though, that you have to be comfortable doing in your role as a state representative is to have the ability and to have the will to stand up and express your views and help rally people towards those things that are very important. I hope that I have demonstrated that this past year, not only in the hearings related to the Trans-Texas Corridor, where our office and myself took a front and center position with that on your behalf to express the concerns that we all had, as well as behind the scenes in working with officials from TxDOT, as well as the actual commissioner and most recently the chair of the commission, Deidre DeLisi. That is something that requires a will and a sense of comfort, if you will, in being able to stand and do those kind of things. You don't like to always have to be the person that's running against somebody. You really like more often to have to be the person that is working with people. During the past 2 years, I've developed some substantial relationships with all members of the House across the aisle, in terms of legislation that was important in the interest of the citizens of Texas. And so I would say that the thing that we need to look for in your representative is the will and the ability to stand up and address some of those tough issues, but at the same time be able to reach across the aisle and work with people that are for the good of the state of Texas. And so I think I have demonstrated that to you, and I hope that you give me the opportunity to continue that service in the coming session.
Thank you. Mr. Bottos, what are the major differences between your wife, Dorothy, and Representative Zerwas, and why is she a better choice for state representative?
She has much nicer hair than John.
More of it.
More of it, sure. Basically, what Dorothy has set her platform, if you will, obviously party, but there's also one other thing. We've contacted this year somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 new people that we met and made friends with and all over the district, and basically in the small towns and Donawang and Lane City. These are real far-flung reaches that they don't see many people, and she wants to get to this position and come back and say, oh, look, I'm going to represent you, but I'll be there during the year, not obviously in session, but during the year at other times, during the little functions that you normally go to doing your politician work, but basically any other times that you go through, still support those communities. They never see, for the most part, their elected representative. That's a common complaint. One other issue, just to pitch back on a little bit, out of the 4,000 or 5,000 people, not one ever mentioned anything that they had a problem with immigration. So that's just a particular point. I mean, you can hear it from one side, you don't hear it anybody that we talk to, and that include a lot of Republicans and Democrats. But their problem was the economy and how it was affecting their lives and livelihood. The farmers have problems with fuel prices, which are going down magically. So that's sort of an issue that maybe be controlled, but farmers have particular problems. People have water problems. There's eminent domain issues. She's very involved in this, and she would like to basically come in there as a representative that is in touch completely with the people, and sit there and actually go there and represent the people that elected her